Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review. And for the start of this video, I'm going to be discussing pretty much a real classic film. And that's the 1988 movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Yes, believe it, I'm actually doing that one. Yes, it's kind of a cult classic at this point, but at the time it came out, it was a really hot movie and very popular and got rave reviews from the critics. Because it happened to be one of those movies. But Disney was famous for doing it during the 40s and 1950s, but having even into the 60s, and having movies where they had a couple of scenes that mixed uh, real live action with animation. We did it with Mary Poppins, they did it with Song of the South, and they did it with Pete's Dragon. Um, this time, for Who Framed Roger, it was directed by Robert Zemeckis, produced by Steven Spielberg. So you have real huge backing for this film in terms from production value. And of course, this movie is from beginning to end makes live action animation, and it did better than any other film before him because the technology was. We didn't have CGI quite yet, but the technology was there to make it really work and work well, and that's what it did in this movie. The other versions, I mean, it did well, like I mentioned, but it wasn't you know perfect. It wasn't perfectly synced up on that great. They did well, but they didn't have the technology then. Now, since in the 80s, when they had the technology slowly to really do well with this type of a movie. But as far as Bob Hoskins, it also has Christopher Lloyd, who played the villain, Judge Doom, and you had Charles Fletcher was the voice of Roger Rabbit. And he did a terrific job voicing Roger Rabbit, especially with the stutter with the please and all that stuff. Now for the purpose of the movie. Bob Hoskins plays a private investigator named uh, Eddie Valiant, and him and his brother will both work together as private eyes. And recently, his brother was recently killed by a tomb. Now, of course, the premise of this movie is that cartoon characters interacted well with real human beings. And they even have a section where all the cartoon characters live, Cartoon Town. And of course, in this area of Hollywood, you had cartoon characters interact with humans. So and Eddie, like I said, played by Bob Hoskins, hated tunes because his brother was killed by a cartoon character, which is like the most serious. Well, murder of all kinds is the most serious thing, but a cartoon actually killing a human being it's really crossing the line on every level. And so Bob Hoskins' character says, "Hey, I'm not going to do any more cases for cartoons or for tunes." You know, he gets hired by one of the heads of one of the studios. Says, "Hey, I want you to check out Jessica Rabbit, who happens to be Roger Rabbit's wife." I said, and he goes, "I'm not doing any more tune cases." Come on, he pays you a few dollars, more, and of course, the character Eddie Valiant was drunk. Doesn't do anything, kind of like a slacker at this point. Doesn't want to do anything anymore because of what happened with his brother. Um, but he took the case anyway, and it had to be his wife, Jessica Rabbit, was voiced by Kathleen Turner. And of course, she says the famous line, "I'm not bad at just drawing that way." And she was playing Patty Cake with R.K. Maroon, actually doing Patty Cake, pink is meant, actually do that kind of Patty Cake instead of, not sexual innuendo with that thing. Saying, "Oh, playing Patty Cake," meaning they're having sex with them, but actually playing the actual kids game Patty Cake. I am not kidding. So of course Roger Rabbit goes nuts, and of course, OK Moon gets killed. And not only does he get killed, but Acme, who of course is the head of the company that supplies Wile E. Coyote with all these gadgets to kill the Roadrunner. He was killed too, and of course they blame Roger Rabbit for doing it because they were fooling around with his wife Jessica Rabbit. So, so meanwhile, uh, Roger is trying to hide with Eddie Valiant. Hey, I want you to help me because I know I didn't. He said, "You know that I didn't do it," and reluctantly, Eddie takes the case and he's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. It sounds like almost like 19 because this movie is based in the 1940s. So you do have a lot of like almost like a Casablanca type motives going on in this thing. You don't know where anybody, what side any of these characters were on, even the cartoon characters. So of course, at one point, there was like this trolley line in Hollywood that got bought out and it's going to be closing. I said, boy, gee, I wonder why this is closing. It's been a successful business and all that stuff. And of course, Judge Doom, who was played by Christopher Lloyd, wants to kill Roger. And he developed this stuff called dip. And of course, you put a tune in the dip and it kills him. That's the only way you can kill a tune is putting him in this substance called dip. And of course, as we of course in real life, you know that cartoon characters don't get killed. You get him over the head, you gotta shoot him, set him on fire, blow him up. Of course, if you anybody knows any watch the old Warner Brothers cartoons, you know Looney Tunes with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all those characters, you know the nothing gets blown up or any of the other cartoons that I grew up with. Cartoons were made in the 60s. I was born in 1971. So all those cartoons that were made in the 60s I grew up watching in reruns, none of the characters die. The cartoon characters. They get beat up or hurt, but they don't die. No matter what happens to the characters, no matter what situation, they don't die. But Judge Doom, he made the substance that would kill a tune with dip. So of course, that's when he put Roger in to kill him, and trying to avoid all that stuff. So, make a long story short, it's that Eddie Brown is protecting Roger to investigate this case. And he's trying to. I'm sorry about what happened there, but something happened on the computer and it got messed up. Uh, so anyway, Roger asks Eddie to protect him and says, "Hey, you gotta help me from Judge Doom who wants to kill me." And of course, Judge Doom has his husband or Weasels who try to also get Roger. So of course, what happens is he does find out that hey, the only way that he can solve this thing is they're actually going to Toontown. So he does go into Toontown and you find out, oh, it's about like 3/4 of the way to the movie where Eddie Valiant does go into Toontown. And you see all the famous characters from both Warner Brothers and from Disney. Now, of course, this is what has made this movie unique: is that you have characters from Warner Brothers interacting with characters from Disney. Like for example, there's this one particular scene when it was like a dueling piano thing with Daffy Duck and Donald Duck. So the two of them were competing on piano. Donald was playing on one piano and Daffy was playing on the other. And Donald was saying something, and Daffy, of course, says, "Can anybody understand what this duck is saying?" And of course, there were times when you don't understand what Daffy was saying either. Because both of them had like this lisp, and you can't understand what either one was saying. Um, but what makes it even funnier is that you also not only have those characters, but also you have Tweety, from Sylvester Tweety cartoons in it. You had Mickey, you had Goofy, you had Dumbo even. You had Snoop Dogg or whatever his name is, or Hound Dog, who was going up, sir, and playing with the elevator operator. Um, you had. I mean, only real new characters they actually had in this thing, cartoon characters, but of course Roger, the the baby, and you also had the weasels. I mean, those characters were new characters, and of course, obviously, they were made for this movie. But they brought in a lot of the old style cartoon characters, which of course makes even more the movie more nostalgic than it really is, even though the movie came out in 1988. Uh, but of course, the real guy behind this whole plot was Judge Doom. You know, he was the one who bought out the Red Claw trolley. He was the one who wants to destroy Toontown and built in a freeway, which is a new thing. 8 lanes, you know, no traffic. Because in the 1940s, no one's ever heard of a freeway before in the 1940s. So, because Eddie Valance is a freeway, what the hell is a freeway? And of course, the big spoiler is not only was Judge Doom behind the whole thing and framing Roger that he was the one who actually killed OK Maroon and Acme, but he was also the one who killed Eddie's brother. No, major spoiler. And he didn't know that he was a Toon until, of course, when Eddie was fighting with Judge Doom. And first, you thought that Judge Doom gets killed by a steamroller, you know, fans him out. Excuse me. Excuse me. But meanwhile, he happens to be popping. Excuse me. Excuse me. But it turns out to be the guy who killed excuse me. And it happens to be the guy who killed Eddie's brother. And then when after he got flattened, after when Judge Doom gets flattened after when Judge Doom gets flattened out, he starts to pop back out. And Roger says, Eddie, look, Judge Doom is not a human being, he's a Toon. And he says, oh my god, he's a Toon. And he says, now does any Toon, and of course his voice was, just like this, and of course his legs bugging out. And maybe he killed your brother. You know that type of thing. And of course, actually they had a big fight. And of course, what happened was how Eddie beats Judge Doom. When of course Judge Doom got hit with the spray of the step. So that's how Judge Doom dies. And of course, now they don't know what's going to happen with Toontown now because they didn't find Acme's will. Even though they did find Acme's will, it was written on a love note by Roger to his wife Jessica. And of course, he wrote it on the same paper as the will. So, hey, it leaves Toontown to the Toons, and it was saved Toontown, and that's how the movie pretty much ended. Of course, with a trademark with Porky Pig. Thank that's all, folks. But the movie itself is innovative. And I think there was remember, there was a documentary at the time on how they did, how they did all the mechanical stuff so that Bob Hoskins could interact with Roger. Like they did like a device that removed the. In one scene where Eddie and Roger were handcuffed to each other, and of course there was a device that was hooked up to the other end of the handcuffs would make a move, like Roger was actually physically in the handcuffs, or how to physically interact with the wall splash or different things so that Bob could easily walk off. I think Bob Hoskins did a terrific job. He should have gotten an Oscar for this thing because he did really terrific work on this. I think that was the best work that Bob Hoskins did in his career. But that's my review of for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I want to apologize for the interruption I had before. Please click on the video. Please read it. Please subscribe to my channel. And please forward this video on your Facebook pages. And once again, I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to make any comments on my videos. At least the more current ones, for obvious reasons, and I won't go into that again. So please subscribe to my channel, and you can check out all my videos on my YouTube channel at RowdyC.com. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.